our knowledge management team, which sits in major projects delivery services. So sits in the centre of major projects, which is where all of our major construction projects sit. And if Nikki, you just want to introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Nikki Booth. I'm a knowledge manager here in Major Projects.
So the way this session is going to work is that we've got a bit of a slide deck. Nikki's going to take you through that to give you a sense of why knowledge is important and how we want to work. We're then going to give you a live demo of our knowledge site, which is built on the SharePoint platform. We will sit the link to the site in the chat. So if you've not tried it before, you can follow the link at your leisure. You'll get a dialog box that says ask for permission. We'll be able to grant that and you'll be able to get access to our knowledge resources online. Once we've done and dusted that, there should be time for Q&A. So if you want to post stuff either in the chat or in the Q&A, we will pick up any questions at the end. So Nikki, if you would like to make a start, do you want me to move on to the next slide for you?
Not just yet, actually. Thanks, Martin. So we've just to indicate, we've noted there at the bottom about a Kipling approach, and that's because that's a lean approach. We're actually looking at challenging perceptions here, delving into the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why of situations and scenarios to help generate ideas, problem solve, and have a deeper understanding when we're talking about knowledge management. Martin, next slide, please.
This is where we were supposed to be seamless, and here we go.
So we're predominantly focusing on tacit knowledge. So that's specific knowledge that's attributed to a person that's not necessarily straightforward to communicate. The Association of Project Management, so APM, the definition there is of knowledge management is a systematic management of information and learning. So it turns personal information experience into collective knowledge that can be widely shared throughout an organisation and a profession. And knowledge is a specialist PPM discipline. Knowledge and information management is definitely a thread throughout P3M3. So, for example, government, control, benefits, risk, finance, etc., etc. We are looking towards a greater level of maturity in these areas as an organisation to move from being reactive to being proactive. And we're looking at how we share, how we evaluate, and how we enable others to apply that learning and that experience when we're talking about knowledge management. Next slide, please, Martin. So why is it important? Here at National Highways, we have 3 key imperatives that you've probably well heard of before and be aware of them. It's safety, customer, and delivery. And we're about capturing knowledge, using what we already know, feeding that back into projects and schemes in a variety of ways. So as an organisation, we strengthen our imperatives. We want to make the good aspects of our projects great, the tricky things easier, adapt and see the risks differently. And using the old adage, a problem shared is a problem halved. We want to make connections and join the dots, bring clarity to that and deliver to higher standards. And as a wise person once said, but I can't remember that reference, it's about leveraging intellectual assets to enhance performance. And here at National Highways, knowledge management looks different across the different stages of our projects and our lifestyle cycle. So stages 0 to 7 and our projects and how we hand those through the organisation. Knowledge management, that is very, very different from aspect to aspect of projects. Martin, next slide, please. So why should you care? Fundamentally good knowledge management helps you to help your future self. It can unlock and release pressure in a number of places. It allows us to celebrate improvements, however big or small they might be. And knowledge management channels the use of standards and compliance. As I say, forewarned is forearmed. It enables you to fast track, smooth out, and put theory into practice in preparation for the next development or milestone for a project. So whether you're looking at carbon, net zero, biodiversity, different types of technology, social value, the knowledge management is relevant throughout all these different threads of a project. Next slide, please, Martin. So the challenge really is how we improve together. How can we best collaborate? We want to find ways to do that better and in partnership with you guys to unpack and dig into some of those circumstances and situations that bring clarity. For example, task clarity and change control. We want to work honestly together and call out when it's not clear to refine, leading some of that consistent approach and ultimately innovation that moves our projects forward. We're looking to build relationships and support that moves us all forward through those projects and through the next generation of people working on our projects as well. Next slide, please, Martin. So what can we offer? What do we bring to that space? We like to create a safe and respectful and inclusive space for people to learn from one another, to provide support and challenge and improve those delivery outcomes. We have experience in creating environments and spaces that encourage conversations to build understanding and share that knowledge. We bring together integrated teams, bringing people from across our sector to learn from one another. We help drive those conversations around safety, customer and delivery as some of our imperatives here at National Highways. Working with structured approaches, we can help you capture those experiences in ways that you and others can learn from, and also ask the questions like, what would you do differently next time? How do we avoid mistakes? Tackle gaps in our experience, and provide a bigger picture, a better context, so you can join the dots, pull knowledge in, capture evidence to meet the requirements that we are setting here at National Highways. And in order to do a lot of that and to see a lot of our existing content, we have a whole host of those materials and resources available on our knowledge management site that Martin's going to take you through.
Thank you, Nikki. So hopefully that's a seamless transition, and you should all see the homepage of our knowledge site here. So this is sat on Highway SharePoint platform. At this point in time, it's not on the supply chain portal space. It's on the highway space itself, which means that if you want access, you can either follow the link that I will stick in the chat shortly and request permission, or you can email us and ask for permission, or you can talk to one of your National Highways colleagues and they can get in touch with us. Either of those ways will work. So let's start here with the homepage. This is a site that has developed organically over about 4 years. It relies very much on the definition of knowledge management that the APM uses, that Nikki referenced earlier. And the homepage is us trying to provide a kind of Ronseal approach. So it does what it says on the tin. So just to look at some of those elements quickly and then move on at some of the functionality, you've got quite a long menu list on the left-hand side of all the different things that are here. We are looking to kind of refresh the site over the autumn. So when you do have a look at the site, if you have any feedback, there are buttons across the site to say, tell us what you think. Please do give us your feedback. This site has evolved over 4 years on the back of people's feedback. Can't find this, can't do that. It would be better for me if you did. So all of that kind of feedback has helped us improve this. Most important bits of the site are those 5 pictures in the middle. So I know it's a bit kind of cheesy, but the light bulb moment is your link into the case studies, and we'll delve into that in a bit of detail. Latest news is typically stuff that we've recently added to the site. Tools and guidance, so tools, templates, examples of what others have done to capture and share knowledge, and signposts to a lot of other external online resources that you may find helpful. Introduction to knowledge management, I'll come to that at the very end. That's your starting point if you're new to the site. There's 3 short videos to introduce you to the content, the structure, and how to find stuff. And there's some written guidance on how to use the search functions as well. And then the last one there, the kind of bottom right picture, all lessons learnt reports. So those of you who have experience of project control framework stages 6 and stage 7, so kind of moving through construction to handover and then close out, where we finally hand all the assets back into our operational colleagues' space for maintenance, will know that you need to produce a lessons learnt report at the end of stage 6 and the end of stage 7. Since late 2019, we have assured and published all such reports. So both as a source of insight from what others have done and to think about how you might want to capture and report your learning from project delivery experience, those examples are there. We use those reports for 2 very simple things. Firstly, to identify potential learning from a team's delivery that we can then work with them to turn into case study content, webinars, etc. And secondly, to identify where there are challenges to existing standards and processes. Why was this difficult? Does that PCF product not really do the job it's supposed to do anymore? Is that standard no longer best practice? So that we can feed that kind of feedback back to process and standards owners. So that's the home page. Last thing just to pay attention to there is on the right-hand side, we have an events calendar. It's looking quite quiet at the moment because not much stuff happens over the summer. But usually there is an ongoing stream of RIP webinars. Most RIP webinars are knowledge focused, so they're open to the wider supply chain too. We also promote and publish webinar content from Major Projects Association and the Association for Project Membership that we think of wider interest to our audience. And we also, where we can, promote webinars from colleagues in the supply chain where they're happy to share them and invite colleagues from the sector to join us. I think there are a couple coming up. For example, Octavius is quite happy to share its lean webinars when they run them. We've also promoted the Balfour Beatty webinar programs here, which are a great introduction to different aspects of construction. So let's just move on to some of the other pages first. So I'm just going to get my mouse in the right place. So here's one I prepared earlier. So if you clicked on that big light bulb case studies, what you get is this. Overall, there are 15 different topics. So you've got some images and words for links. These topics align to the same categories in the lessons learnt report. So if you are familiar with our PCF lessons learnt template, currently an Excel spreadsheet, by the end of this road investment period, it will be an online tool. You will recognize these are the same categories. So the knowledge site uses the same categories, the same taxonomy, which is the fancy word, as the lessons learnt log does, so that we can start to align content up. You click on any one of these and you will get a page that looks like this. If I can just move my mouse back, here we go. So this is the construction one. Subcategories at the top there, and you can see that the subcategories are then the kind of headings here for the content. Some subcategories have a lot more content than others. So there's quite a bit for earthworks equipment. There's a couple there only for curbs, for landscape, for lighting. Most of the content is written, so it's a mixture of what was originally created in Word or PowerPoint, quite a bit in PDF. And there is also some video and audio content here, typically webinars, but sometimes other things. It's not always obvious here, but if you delve into the detail, this is not just content created by National Highways teams. It includes a range of content created by our supply chain partners. So you will find content here from a variety of our tier 1 and tier 2 contractors where they want to share some of their best practice and improvement and innovation. We're really proud of this. We want to share it because we want to A, help you get better, and B, help you avoid some of the pain you might otherwise experience. So there is content under each of those high-level topics. The amount of content is variable. We do have some gaps. So if you have experience to share that will help us close gaps or improve, then please share with us. So that's case study content. Most of our content is case study content. We've got somewhere around 500 pieces of content, and we'll look at some ways to find that content other than by that topic in a minute. But I just wanted to draw your attention to this page. So this is the tools and links page. So again, we've got some guidance at the top. We've got links to the project control framework, knowledge products, lessons learned log, end of stage report done at the end of every PCF stage, and lessons learnt report done at the end of stages 6 and 7. The current taxonomy with the standard categories, a whole load of signposts to external resources. Some of those you will no doubt be familiar with. Some of them might be new to you. Definitely worth having a look and see what you can find. And then if we go down the page, there's a range of tools, templates, and examples of the kinds of things, if you've not done it before, that are good starting points to say, I've not run a learning from lessons workshop before. What's a good way to structure it that will engage people, capture the stuff that's important to us, and think about how we turn that conversation in the workshop into useful content that others can share and learn from, including some simple videos here. So a range of examples. So if you're new to knowledge management as a discipline, good place to start to think about how you capture and improve your practice. If you're brilliant at this already, and I know some of you will be, then it's a chance for you to kind of share what you do so that we can give people some different options and examples. Here are things that some of our supply chain partners do, so we can learn from each other. Just finally, to give you a couple of examples of how to find stuff other than going through the case study high-level topics. The easiest one is search. So the search function at the top of every page here in SharePoint, and this does use the standard SharePoint search function at the moment. So typically I would start with a simple word. This is concrete because I know there's content here that I can find. Takes a moment or two. The search function comes back initially with anything that has that word you're searching for in the title of the document. So here we are with some different things here, all concrete in the title, and you even get little thumbnail views of the contents there. So if I clicked on that one, for example, and through the magic of the internet, I can get this up in less than about 10 seconds. So if I talk for long enough, it will show. But while I'm letting that think about it, oh, there we go. It does it just. So for example, this is an archived document. So important here, older content that is no longer best practice, we tend to archive. We don't delete it. So you will find some archived content, and usually it's labeled. The archived content is so that we stop reinventing the wheel. So this was best practice. This came from our corporate efficiencies team in the first Rhodes period. And this is a fairly basic case study. So it's just text and some information here. And you can see formally, because this was an efficiency, which means Office of Rail and Roads and Department of Transport need to agree our workings out are okay. There's formal assurance and sign off there. But it's archived because it's old. There is better practice out there. So to move on, so that search function is the easiest way to find stuff. And on that introduction to knowledge management, where you've got guidance, the search guidance tells you how you can refine searches just using that simple search bar at the top. So you can use wildcards, you can use quotation marks, you can combine words. But the easiest way I find, and this is a personal preference thing, do I want to drill down into a topic and see what's there under that topic, go through the case study and the topic pages. If you're looking for something very specific, the documents view, so on the menu on the left here, choose document, and then here at the top, because there's some different options, I've chosen all case study options, and it's not going to refresh itself, but that's fine. What you can see is there is a very long list of all the content that is case study content. It's a really long list. I'm not going to scroll down it because it will take forever. But what you can see here at the top is that every one of these you can do stuff with. So main category, these are those same categories in the taxonomy. I can choose to sort them A to Z, but more interestingly, I can choose to filter. So if I click on the filter, there's the categories. I've decided I just want to look at design. I don't want to look at anything else at this point in time. So I'm going to filter out everything that is not design. I'm an admin person. So here I've got a little thing I'm going to get rid of that tells me not every last piece of content is tagged. Here, archive stuff. Do I want archived content? Again, I'm going to filter. So I'm going to click for, oh, there is no options here. So I'm just going to leave that one there. Go away and come back to here. Let's choose subcategory instead. This is where the whole thing is going to freeze because it doesn't want to do it. All right, let's apply it then. Right. Filter by archive, no. So no chooses the stuff that is not archived. I might want to choose PCF stage. So if you remember, Nikki said stages 0 to 7. Stage 0 is just feasibility studies about the things we could do in the next Rhodes period. So none of that content shows up here at this point in time because most of that feasibility study stuff goes nowhere. But if I wanted, for example, design stage 3, so this is the kind of initial preliminary design work, maybe stage 2 to see if there's any thinking there. So I don't want to look at final design stuff, which typically happens stage 5, just early stuff. So final thing here, just to help you think about search functions. So you can combine that filter. So we've got just design here, and just stuff that is not archived, so it's okay. And we've chosen just stage 3. You'll notice that some content is staged, it's tagged with more than one PCF stage because it might apply to more than one stage. What we can then also do is just choose to sort newer to older, so we can see the most recent content first once it's updated. So here's stuff that's been added in May of this year. This is an M6 Junction 19. It says celebrating success, which doesn't tell you a lot. Actually, it's a really interesting design case study where they transferred the learning from both preliminary and final design, so looking at some of those buildability challenges, through to work being done on the bridge for the A533 expressway. So it was transferring learning from stage 3 to stage 5 on one scheme, looking back, what would we have done differently in stage 3 as a consequence of what we now know in stage 5? And looking at that learning, how can we transfer that insight across to a scheme before they know they need it, so they can make some better stage 3 design decisions than we did based on the buildability challenges we had at stage 5. So that's kind of the basics of the knowledge site. Hopefully that's a good overview. I'm just going to kind of end on this slide here as a reminder, and then come back to the last slide in the pack just to kind of reinforce some of the messages you heard from Nikki. And I can see there is one question in the Q&A. If you have questions, please post them now in the chat or the Q&A. And once I'm done, I will stick links in the chat too. So just a reminder, if you've not visited the knowledge site before, when you do visit, this is a good place to start. You've got some simple written guidance here. You've got 3 short videos. The longest one is the search function, so it takes you through in a bit more detail the stuff I've just shown you. Going to come back to the slides for the last bit here. So if we just move on. So knowledge isn't just important for the here and now. What are we learning from our experience here and now? How can we share that with colleagues to help them build on our good experiences, and then improve some of the content on the knowledge site and elsewhere, but also to help us learn from our own experiences. What will we do differently next time? What will we advise colleagues? If that was painful or difficult, or we had to go back and fix some stuff, what can we do to be proactive next time and avoid some of those situations where we have to fix stuff? Simple example, which is often in my mind, when we're in construction phase, round about a quarter of non-conformance reports, so where something has gone wrong, are as a consequence of one person working on one piece of the site accidentally damaging something that someone else has already done. So drainage, for example, didn't realise it was quite there, and now we're going to have to dig some of that up and repair it or replace it. How do we get better in early design, so stage 3, and then thinking about kind of our access and lands requirements in stage 4, and then final design in stage 5, so that when we get to site, we've designed some of those potential issues out. So we're not going to incur the same kind of problems, so that we learn from our experience. So this is what the future looks like. And those of you old enough to remember will remember that DeLorean produced some amazing cars that absolutely still look futuristic in a lot of ways. But although I don't think they're the only cars in existence that have those kind of swanky doors. There are some expensive, possibly Italian designer cars, the kind where if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it, that have similar cars. Lamborghinis, some of them. Anyway, without going off piste, those of you who are part of or are going to become part of the regional delivery partnerships will probably know that there are some simple knowledge management metrics in place at the moment that are used as part of our kind of league table approach. So where you're looking to kind of differentiate yourselves from your colleagues in terms of how we work well with each other across the sector. That the knowledge metrics are very much about how are you getting involved in various kind of workshops, work streams, forums that help us share knowledge. Those metrics are changing. It's not that they're bad metrics per se, but they're not, that the metrics are changing to focus much more on outcomes. So rather than are you involved, how are you capturing your experience and sharing it more widely via the knowledge site so that others can learn from it, so that collectively as a sector we can get better? How are you applying content from the knowledge site that actually is suitable for your scheme? So there's something there that you want to work on, so that you can show how you've applied knowledge and it's made a difference to your delivery. And your feedback will help us then improve the content on the site for next time round for the next person. If there's a gap in content, are you capturing your experience? Are you working with your colleagues, possibly on other schemes, so that together, because you've got the same problem or a similar problem, you're finding a better way forward that you can then share, whether that's a written case study, a webinar recording, something else. So those metrics will be coming. Understanding and using and contributing to and feeding back on the content on the knowledge site will become key to that. So it becomes much more, how are we capturing, sharing and applying knowledge, and what does the evidence look like where we're doing that well? So we can build up a better body of knowledge, we can look at how we share it, and we can start to capture those impacts in ways that are meaningful for all of us. For us, it's about delivering what we promise in the Rose Investment Programme, so to cost and schedule, For you guys, it's as much about delivering what you promised and protecting your margin so your shareholders see a good return on the investments you've made in working with us. So all of us gain from this. Other things that are coming, an end-to-end process for learning from lessons. So an end-to-end process that looks at the asset life cycle rather than just the project life cycle. So we start to get better at pulling learning in from our asset colleagues and applying it at the right point in the project life cycle. A new log that will sit on the site eventually that will enable all of us to learn in real time from each other. So instead of stuff sat in Excel, in OneDrive, in SharePoint, in Teams, on your desktop, I hope not, but we know it happens, we'll have one version of the data for the learning from the logs. All of us will be able to see patterns and trends data. So in the next stage of the life cycle, what are the kinds of things that are being reported most often? For me and Nikki, that means can we pay attention to that and work with some of those people to understand the root causes and find a better way forward, and then play that back through guidance, improvements to standards and processes, knowledge content that we can share through webinars. For you guys, it means keeping track of what's happening and saying, well, if I'm moving to the next stage in 6 months' time, what's happening now in that stage for others? Are those kinds of things the kinds of things that I've captured in my risks and opportunities log? Are they things I'm factoring into my planning? So we can start to use data proactively by the end of this road period, moving into the next road period. So when we look at the next iteration of the RDP contractual arrangements, all of us will be in a much better place to work collaboratively together. So I'm done and dusted. I hope that was useful. One question here from Neil. If anyone else has questions, please post them either in the chat or the Q&A. Nikki and I do have a couple of other things that we can pick up, the sorts of things that people ask more generally. So I'm just going to read Neil's question out and then answer it and try and multitask and stick links in the chat at the same time. Can we add our own corporate case studies to the website? The simple answer, Neil, is yes. There is a slightly more nuanced answer. So at this point in time, if you want to submit knowledge content, then you either can email us content to Major Projects Knowledge Management at nationalhighways.co.uk. And I've just set our email address in the chat. That's a team inbox, so Nikki, Rebecca and I can all access that and respond to people. It's the email address that we use for formal consultations. So if you're doing a lessons learned report in stage 6 or stage 7, we quality assure that report so we can have a conversation about what needs to go in it, what good looks like. And of course, you can see examples on the site. Where we get content submitted from a project team, regardless of whether that project team is an integrated team within National Highways and it's a highways person who's sending it in, or it's a colleague in our supply chain, or, and there's a larger piece of work here because we are building relationships with our colleagues in Network Rail, Transport for London, High Speed 2, to look at that wider sector learning and how we can share learning across the sector. Because all of us, to some extent, are responsible to the Department for Transport in terms of what we do and how we do it. So we should get better at sharing stuff that's common to all of us. We generally do a kind of readability check in the team. So you may know that National Highways has normal, not formal guidance on our communication. So all of our communications to the public, to each other, to key stakeholders is trying to make sure that we use ordinary everyday language. We don't use acronyms and technical terms without explaining them. We don't use 17 words where 3 would do. So we do that readability check. So if we read a case study and think, this sounds like a brilliant idea, and I can see what you've been doing, how you've done it, and more importantly, because this is a key bit here, I can also see how, if I'm trying to do this on another scheme, I can take your experience and apply the learning and have a go at applying it to my scheme. So that's the key bit. Can I see how to apply your experience and learning to mine? Then I'm going to say, fine, it passes that basic readability check. I can see what the learning from this experience is and how someone else might apply it. What I don't have, and what Nikki doesn't have, and what Rebecca doesn't have, is specific technical expertise What you can see on the screen at the moment, because I'm trying to multitask, is our standard case study template. I'm just going to make it easy to see all of that on screen. Well, I would do if my mouse decided it wanted to play. So what we then do, and that depends to some extent, it might be, depending on the route that it's already done, is that we look for subject matter advisor assurance, so technical assurance. So if this was a case study about a bridge, I'm not a structures expert, let alone a bridges expert. We have a community of subject matter advisors, which does include some colleagues from our supply chain with particular expertise, and we have a variety of connections to reach out to. We would chuck this across to someone with the relevant expertise and say, can you cast your eye over this? Do you think this meets our current standards? Do you think this is good practice from a technical perspective? That might be, does it meet the Design Manual for Roads and Bridges or ADMMM standards? It might be, there are a variety of different ways to approach this. So I know when I talk to designers that depending on the company you work for, how you trained and your experience, you might have a slightly different house style. So we sometimes see different solutions to the same initial problem from different designers. That's good, that's interesting. It's not a one size fits all. And we use that technical subject matter assurance to then kind of say, we're ready to publish this on the site. So someone coming cold to your case study doesn't need to know anything about who you are or your experience. They can kind of read the case study and say, okay, it's on the site, so we can trust it and we can see how to apply it. And more importantly, so if I kind of move down this a bit, you can see it's kind of context, details, benefits. How can others apply the learning? Top tips, other things, further information, and contact details. So if this sounds like it's going to be something that's good for my scheme, I can see how to apply the learning, but I just want to pick a human being's brains because that's where this knowledge originated. So that's the tacit knowledge. Can I pick up the phone or message someone in Teams or email and say, can we have a chat? Is there a website? Are there diagrams, standards, other things that will help me put some wider context around this? So there's lots of content out there. My email is deliberately shut at this point in time, so I don't see any emails as a distraction from this because you guys are my focus this morning. But if you follow the link through and have a go at the site, if you've not been to the site before, you will get a dialog box that says you need to request permission. Once we're done and dusted on this session, I'll have a check. And if any of you have requested permission, I can grant it. The site will remember your contact details. So you only do that once. Beyond that, if you save the site address to your favorites, you can visit it at times that are convenient to you. If you have content you want to submit, our case study template is on the site. It does include in the template at the end, there's a bit of guidance and our email address. So you can then email a draft. If you want to have a conversation on the back of the draft, we've had a go, what do you think? We can have a conversation and say, either this is fine as it stands, but we just want a bit of technical assurance. Has it gone through internal technical assurance with you? Because I know some of our supply chain partners have internal resources that aren't that dissimilar to our approach to capturing knowledge. So if you've gone through technical assurance internally, then by and large, we're largely going to say that sounds fine. If it's come through some forum, so for example, the supply chain EDI forum do periodically share stuff that they're proud of. This is a brilliant way to create a more inclusive workspace, to make some of our roles more accessible to people with particular needs and how we assess that, to make our site offices safe for people with visual impairments, for example. There's some interesting and sometimes quite niche case studies out there, but they are brilliant pieces of work and you can take the learning and apply it more widely. If they've come through that kind of forum, so you've had that peer assurance, then we're probably going to take them as they are. But the challenge is kind of back to you. How do you want to share your experiences to help all of us improve, to avoid the pain points, the potential for rework, to celebrate the kind of improvement and innovation and build on it? Because it's a collaborative endeavor. All of us here are here at the end of the day to do the same thing, to deliver the best possible road network we can, to make sure that whether you're working on our network or using our network, we keep you safe, to ensure, and this is going to be the biggest pressure point in the future, that whatever we do on our network, we are reducing our carbon footprint as far as we possibly can, and we are paying due care and attention to the environmental impacts that our work has. Those of you who are working with us already will know that our environmental challenge here, so this is meeting the government's Climate Act requirements, is that as a network, so this is the strategic road network for England, our network, so us, our supply chain, our offices, our partners, the road users need to be carbon neutral by 2050. That's a huge challenge for all of us. We're not going to get there unless we share our experiences, unless we work out better ways to build on each other's experiences and learn from each other to drive up improvements. So the major projects knowledge management at nationalhighways.co.uk is an email address. So if you use Outlook, you should be able to email us. The top link, which says Highways SharePoint, that should work as a web address. It shows up as a hyperlinked address in my chat. If you try that, as I said, my Outlook is deliberately turned off at the moment, so I won't get the emails where people have requested access until this session is over and done with. Yeah, Nick has just stuck it in the chat again. So if you try that, you should get a dialog box, which means that we'll have an email in our inbox waiting to kind of action to grant you access. So if you already have knowledge content internally that you are happy to share with us, then talk to us or submit one or two and we can have a conversation about how we do this. If you've not done this kind of thing before and you want to learn how to get better at it, one of the work streams we're focusing on over the rest of the RIS2 period, so taking us up to the end of March 2025, is looking at how we build capability. So all of us have both the tools and the skills, and more importantly, the confidence, because that's often the sticking point, to identify and capture learning from delivery. That was something we've not done before. What did we gain from that? Looking back, what might we do differently next time? How does that need to feed into other things that are in our future so we are better prepared for them, so that we will make fewer mistakes and build on the successes? So if you want to work with us, if you've got some ideas about how you can work with us, then let's kind of have a conversation, see how we can do this. So we've still got a bit of time left. So if anyone else has any questions or comments at all, please stick them in the chat. It's always slightly disconcerting because Nikki and I can't see any of you. You can probably see us. Whenever I've done this before, I try and, well, I'm talking to Nikki because I can see her picture on screen, basically. We were sat in the same room together, but we couldn't work out a way to do this and both kind of be on screen from separate laptops without some kind of incredibly annoying feedback loop, you know, like a really bad version of the Doctor Who theme tune. So what else might we want to talk about? So, okay, common question then. So something that we have been asked when we've done presentations before. What happens if I've got a really good example of learning from project delivery experience, but there's some sensitive information in it? And we've had that kind of conversation with colleagues internally and externally in the past. So I absolutely get that for all of us, we sometimes have some kind of conflicting, challenging objectives here. We want to do the best by our relationships. We want to build collaborative, honest, open working relationships with each other, because that's the way we will deliver the best outcomes for the scheme, for the people who are going to use it, for the public purse, because we are spending public money and we have a formal duty to ensure value for public money. And we are spending £4 billion a year of the public purse here to deliver the road investment strategy. So that kind of sensitive information, it might be commercial information, it might be intellectual property of some kind or another. There are different ways to play this, and no doubt every business will have a slightly different take on what they think is and isn't commercially sensitive. My view, and this is how we try and work with people, is that we recognize that sometimes there will be things that you don't feel comfortable sharing outside your business. And those lines are different for all of us. My answer to that question is the same every time round. If we took out the bit of information that is sensitive to you, sometimes commercial, sometimes something else, can we still learn from what's left? So if you're giving us a case study, there's a bit of context. What was the scheme we were working on? What stage was the project in? What particular thing were we focused on? Was it an issue to do with lands and access? Was it an issue to do with environmental impact? Was it an issue to do with technology or earthworks? Was it a design or construction or maintenance lens that we need to bring to this? If we take out the specific sensitive stuff, can I still see what you were doing, how you were doing it, so the particular activities, steps, what the outcome was? It's almost like kind of a job interview, isn't it, where you're told to kind of tailor it around that STAR: situation, task, action, result. But more importantly, if you were to do this activity again to achieve the outcome you're looking for, we wanted to get the right technical solution. We wanted to reduce the amount of earthworks. We wanted to improve biodiversity. We wanted to have fewer design challenges down the line. We were trying to address a particular stakeholder's challenge to us. If we take out the sensitive stuff, can we still see the learning? What would you do differently next time that would allow you to deliver a better outcome more safely, more efficiently, so you might save time or money, as well as stress? Can someone else from your top tips, from what you do differently next time, also say, okay, I've got something similar. I can see what you were trying to do. I can see what the sticking point was. I can see what your hindsight learning is and what you would tell someone else to pay attention to. And the fact that you don't have detailed workings out there, that would be nice. But if you can't share that, I get it. But I can still see the approach you took and the outcome that you got. And I can apply that thinking to what I'm trying to do. And there are some case studies on the site that we have published where we've worked through that process with people. If we take this out, can we still see the learning and apply it? So that's the kind of sensitivity issue. And that's where we want to be pragmatic, because we recognize that sometimes your imperatives around what's important to your business are not the same as ours. But we are in this together. We all want the same outcomes around safety, customer, and delivery. So if you are worried about stuff that's sensitive, then talk to us, because quite a lot of the time we can work out a way to create content that will allow the learning to come through regardless. And as I said, there are examples of that on the site. I'm not going to go and pick them out, but there are. And the point is you can still use them to apply the learning. Where if we take the sensitive stuff out, then that effectively takes away this is with hindsight what we do differently next time, because then we're not going to publish it. Because everything on the knowledge site is accessible to everyone who has access to the knowledge site. So it doesn't matter whether you work for National Highways or whether you work for one of our supply chain partners, whether you're one of the large supply chain partners, Costain, Kier, Atkins, Balfour, etc., whether you are a small specialist supplier with a particular expertise in tunnels, in particular structures, something else, don't know. You have the same access as everyone else. You have the same opportunities to share your experiences, both the ones you're proud of, that you want to show off about, and rightly so, celebrate that success, that innovation and improvement, but more importantly, enable others to learn from that, so we drive up standards across the sector. But also that stuff where you are comfortable sharing it, and I get that this is cliche, I know, but a journey we're on together, and we're in different places. But this is about building trust so that we feel comfortable, all of us, sharing the stuff that was difficult, the stuff that we had to go back and unpick and rework. Because if we can avoid that rework in the future, all of us benefit. We deliver stuff as we promised, to time, quality, cost, commitments that we made in the road investment strategy and our business plan. You guys deliver what you promised to your commitments under our contractual arrangements. Your shareholders are happy. Our shareholder is happy. We go away with good reputations. I'm feeling confident about working together and looking forward to the next challenge. So I'm talking for the sake of it now. There are still some attendees in the meeting. I know some of you have dropped off for other things, but if anyone has any other questions or comments, once we give you access post-session, if you choose to submit content or reach out for help, we haven't done this before, can we? Okay. We can pick that up offline, Jane, if it's not working for you. Once in a blue moon, we get someone trying to access the site who gets a strange message. If you're clicking the link and it's not working, what we can do is go in and add you to the site. So we can add you to the site, which means you then get an email from our SharePoint saying, click this link to give you access. If you ever do have a problem in the future, so if it's saying you need a password, that might be an Office 365 issue. Occasionally, we have an issue with people whose Office 365 configuration is slightly different to ours. I think we tended to get it most often, actually, with people who work for the Department for Transport, because their Office 365 platform was locked down in a way different to ours, because they sit inside the government secure intranet and we don't. What we will do, Rebecca and Neil, is we will add you both to the site. I don't know. I'm just going to have a look at the attendees and see if it shows up, which means I need to click the right icon. No, it doesn't. If you can use the email, I think it's the easiest way to do this. Actually, there might be something in our email. I don't know. But if you can use the email address that we stuck in the chat, so major projects knowledge management, all without any full stops or separations, at nationalhighways.co.uk. If you can send us an email, so it picks up your email address, thanks, Nikki, we will use that email address to add you to the site. So if you can't get in for whatever reason, if you email us, that will allow us to add you direct to the site. We can go into the admin settings and do that. The second thing is that if you are trying and you get a particular error message, either something like you need a password, or you might get something that says kind of SharePoint error and a string of numbers and letters and things. If you can do a screen snip of it and send that to us, sometimes that allows us to identify the problem because we have seen it before. But most people get access without any issues. Where there is an access issue, it's normally easy for us to resolve by us adding you to the site direct. So I'm glad, well, I'm not glad you had that experience. It should have been seamless, but it's allowed us to kind of pick up the fact that sometimes people do have an access issue. And we do have some simple ways to sort it out. And once the access is resolved, it should be a one-off thing. It shouldn't be that you have problems in the future. So it's just about, once you're in, saving it to your favorites, so you don't need to remember the email address. And you shouldn't be required to put in a username or a password or anything like that in future. It's not like Teams, where if you're given access to different team spaces in other people's teams spaces, you sometimes need to log in and out of your employer's system to log into our system and vice versa. And I get that that's a pain. But the SharePoint site shouldn't work like that. It should give you seamless access once you've been accepted to the system. So I think this is the point, really, unless there's anything else. We didn't think to add a poll or a quiz because we thought this would be enough, and it probably is. We're probably good to end it. So I'm going to kind of give a few seconds just to see if anyone else wants to say anything. If not, then enjoy the rest of the event. We will sort out your access. We would very much appreciate feedback. So once you've had a chance to have a look, if there's stuff you like, tell us. More importantly, if there is stuff that is missing or would work better if it was set up slightly differently, then tell us. As I said at the beginning, kind of the way the site looks now, it's grown organically over time based on user feedback. So if there's something that we're not doing that would work better for you, then tell us and we'll have a look at whether or not we can do it. And if we can, how we do it. Because chances are, if something works well for you, it will work well for others. If something is missing or would work better if we changed it, then that would also kind of solve problems that others have around usability or content. So have a good day.
Many thanks for joining us.